What's up, folks? As you can tell, we are back. Well, I'm back. Let's put it that way. At the very last minute, we've had to call on our super sub, who is like a guy we're going to be talking about later today. He's like Victor Robles. He shows up, does a good job. We invite him back. He gets to stay longer, right? Um, welcome back there, James Grande. It's you and I again this week. Colby had some stuff pop up on him. How's the week? How's the week been?
The week's been good. At least in seasonal fantasy, you and I
Yes.
have had a nice resurgence in our FSGA offense after a little lull there, but so
Yeah, thanks
that's
to
been
Juan
good.
Soto for piloting that week
Yes,
by
that was
himself.
that has been quite the nice
Yes,
draft pick. I think we took him ninth overall.
I think so.
Um, and
Ninth or
that has
10th.
obviously
We were somewhere around the
yes,
end of the.
yeah, late first in a 14 teamer, so that's been nice.
Yeah, we didn't get Judge, but we got Soto. So
I think both, if I remember
whatever.
correctly, both were on the board, and obviously, like hindsight, we probably take Judge there.
I think Judge went one or two picks before us.
Either way, I think I messaged you. I was like, whatever
Yeah.
Yankee outfielder is here, we're taking, and you don't have a say in this, so we're doing it.
Well,
And you were like,
except for Verdugo, but
well, that's fair. That's fair
one
point.
of
Yeah,
two Yankee outfielders that are there
one
we're
of two.
taking.
Yeah, one of two. Yeah, it's been a good week overall. You know, this is a fun part of the baseball season.
Hmm.
When you look at the landscape and you're like, oh, this team is surging. Oh, this team is falling. Oh, this team doesn't care anymore. Oh, this team is surprising. And you maybe not be a postseason team, but look at the value that they have going into the 2025 season. So a lot of good stuff happening across the baseball landscape, and I'm happy to be back. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, earlier this week talking about how close things are. If you look at the National League right now, there are 5 teams within 3 games of each other for the best record in the National League.
That is interesting.
The
That's gonna be
Dodgers
an
are
interesting finish.
71 the Dodgers are 71 and 50. The Phillies are 70 and 50. The Brewers are 68 and 52. The Diamondbacks are 69 and 53 and the Padres are 69 and 53.
It's insane.
All 5 teams are within 3 games of each other of and 3 of those teams are in the same division. So the NL West, like we thought it would be, is shaping up to be just a wild run, and things are pretty close in the AL too. If you look at between the Guardians, the Yankees, the Orioles, the Twins, and the Royals, all 5 of those teams are within 5.5 games of each other for the best record in the American League.
It's fun.
So
It's gonna be a lot of fun. A lot of fun
yeah,
August and September baseball.
yes. And that doesn't even include the Mariners and Astros, who are within a game of each other, and one of them is in the playoffs, and the other one is 3 games out of the wild card.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's going to be just a fun, wild stretch of baseball here. But we do have some news that's going to affect some teams here coming down the stretch. One of them, this is an odd one to me because James Paxton was healthy all year, and now he's got the torn calf.
3 batters in to that game.
Yeah, so it's just an odd one to me, like how he stayed healthy with a team that can't keep anybody healthy. Then he goes to a resurgent Red Sox, and now he gets injured. Like the I don't obviously it's a fluke thing, but it appears that he's going to be basically done for the season, I would guess, because
Yeah, they've already come out kind of and said like, 35 off injured, probably not coming back here.
yeah, I mean they listed on Fangraphs as a strained calf, but there were tweets last night and this morning calling it a partially torn.
Yeah,
So,
Alex Cora has come out and said long shot to return in 2024.
yeah, which for a team that still needed some rotation help and they were banking on a resurgent James Paxton to eat some of those innings. That's a tough one. I don't know exactly where they're gonna turn
Cooper
at this
Criswell.
point.
Cooper Criswell is the name that they're suggesting is gonna. Do you think Cooper Criswell has any standalone value?
I mean, if he holds the spot, and you're desperate for like an SP6, then sure.
I think
Because I think the offense is good enough to keep him in a lot of games, and
yes.
he's been solid. Now he's coming off of he's had COVID, so we'll see if he comes back and hits the ground running. But he's been solid. Not a ton of strikeouts there. Um, just it's always a concern of mine when you're getting a guy who can be kind of a swingman between the bullpen and the rotation.
Yeah.
How many
Yep.
innings you're actually going to get per start from him?
I think what's likely gonna happen is Criswell starts. If he pitches well, he holds the spot. If he doesn't, they give Quinn Priester a shot. Who I'm not. I don't like Quinn Priester as a prospect. Never have, never will. Has not looked good in any level really. Uh, but they traded for him at the deadline, which I thought was an odd deal. But maybe it's just like one of those. They like the pitcher. They want to develop the pitcher, and he's had major league experience in each of the last 2 years. So I think if Criswell pitches well, bar you see him hold the rotation spot, and if not, Quinn Priester's the next guy up. And I don't think I would consider either of them fantasy viable because neither of them miss bats enough for me at this point. Like especially in like Roto, where you're so tight on like strikeouts and
Right.
categories that you need improvements. Like neither of those guys. Plus, what ratios are they going to help? Quinn Priester's had like a 7 ERA in his extended time at the major league level. Like Criswell isn't missing bats, like okay ERA, but has to navigate Fenway as his home ballpark. Like I don't think that either solution for Boston really gets me going for fantasy baseball purposes.
That's true. I think Quinn Priester is probably more of a next year thing. I think they like his
Sure.
pitch mix and they're going to change some of the pitch shapes and pitch
Okay.
mix. I think if they get rid of the four seam fastball, that would do him wonders because it
Yes.
doesn't move
It
and it's
doesn't.
not good. As Colby has said multiple times as a Pirates fan,
Right.
it's his least liked pitch in any of the Pirates pitchers. Um, so I think that's what I think that's what they'll do, and I have faith in the Red Sox to turn around kind of a pitcher. I mean, we've seen what they've done with some of their other young pitchers. Um, Plus, they can always call on Pedro Martinez to help guys figure out their pitch shapes and sequencing. So that's never a bad thing to be able to call on. But I'm with you. Both guys are kind of if you are absolutely desperate for an arm, sure, Criswell kind of helps, but only if you're desperate. Um, Another guy who switched teams at the trade deadline, Jorge Soler went back to Atlanta in what we all thought was going to be a come home, help save the Braves offense, help pilot them to perhaps the postseason. Not looking so great. He tried to run out a ground ball and his hammy tightened up on him. They are saying it's just tightness and not anything more than that yet. But we kind of all know how these things can change and turn into, oh, now he's on the IL because it's actually a pulled hamstring and he's got arrested. Like, how concerned are you with missing the pop that Soler's had since returning to Atlanta?
Yeah, I mean, so like I think you always there's one thing to listen to a coach talk about it, as Snitker did after the game, where he said he wasn't too worried. But it's another thing to listen to the player talk about it. And the player said, I don't know about like
Yeah.
long term effects, right? I
Yeah.
think like there's a thing that we literally talk about in all fantasy space, and it's coach speak, right?
Sure.
So coach speak is one thing, player speak is another. I think hearing how kind of un unsettling it came from Soler's mouth is definitely more concerning then it's not. And again, another guy who isn't always healthy and is on.
Right.
So,
Not to use a bad pun, but he's on his last legs.
so yeah, I mean, it's concerning. I guess like the one thing, if you're a Braves fan, is that Michael Harris returned, and he
Yes.
returned with a bang, where he hits a grand slam and into McCovey Cove, and like, oh, that looks like the last couple of years of Michael Harris back. So, um, where one door closes, another one opens, right, Matt?
Yeah.
And you're now there's, unless you're in a league where there's like you don't have IL spots, or for whatever reason somebody ran out of spots and dropped Michael Harris, you're not just suddenly like picking Michael Harris up. He's going to
Correct.
be very popular. I mean, he is a very coveted fantasy asset. So if you are, just maybe just go check your waiver wire, type in Harris this afternoon, see if he's available. But if more so in just like real baseball perspective, Braves fans are happy to see Michael Harris back. I'm happy to see Michael Harris back, but definitely a little concerned with Soler. You're probably out. You're probably dropping him, and if there's a scenario where it is, or you're just playing the wait and see game. But if he hits the IL, hamstring at this point in the season, you're not going to get the best version of him for September for sure.
Correct. If you're looking for a guy who may replace him, Ramon Laureano may be that guy.
Back on the juice.
Yeah. You
Gotta
know.
be. It's gotta be. He's the only time he's ever been good is when he was on the juice. Just
Yeah.
kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah, I
Just
mean,
kidding.
that seems like the most logical. They're not going to play Adam Duvall in the outfield. That's
Why is
not.
he still on the team?
I don't know. Um,
No
I,
offense to Adam Duvall. He is not. He has been maybe the worst player in baseball this year.
I don't know. Maybe morale. I don't know.
Yeah.
That clubhouse guy. He's the
Yeah.
glue.
Yeah.
Um, but Ramon Laureano looks like the next most obvious choice to fill in for Jorge Soler, who can actually play in the outfield and not just use a DH spot. Maybe they put Ozuna in the outfield, but I doubt it. I think that guy's pretty entrenched in the DH spot, and you don't really want him going out there trying to run. It hasn't gone well for him in the past. Um, so that's what we're looking like in Atlanta. However, we do have some good news here, Tigers fans. Riley Greene has started on a rehab assignment. They are expecting him back within the next, I think, 10 days. I think I saw. Um, so that could be a pretty nice boost to an offense that seems like it's starting to pick up steam
Yeah.
here towards the end of the season.
Yeah. I mean, Riley Green's a good baseball player.
Yes, he is.
The strikeouts are obviously that's
They're
where
not
Riley
great.
Greene is struggles the most. But I mean, in 100 games, 17 home runs, nearly a 500 slug, 840 OPS is super, super, super good. Was an All Star this year, so yeah, I like Riley Greene. I like him rest of season when he returns, and I think like you want to talk about a return. Well, the Tigers also just got Kerry Carpenter back,
Yes.
and I think where they're slotting Carpenter right now, they're batting him second. He's hit 3 home runs at the time of this recording in 2 games since being back. And like when you think about the Tigers, they have not had a lot of protection for Riley Greene throughout the first couple of years of his career. They obviously tried with like Javi Baez and they tried to get pieces for him. They were
Yeah.
hoping Torkelson would be that. He wasn't. He's been anything but. There's been a lot of misses for the
You
Tigers,
mean
but
Akil Baddoo was not production for him?
no, he has not been
Outside of that, like,
great.
week where he went Jeremy Lin on everybody?
Yeah, and yeah, he had his Jeremy Lin week, and he also hit a game winner in a pinch hit scenario on
Yeah.
Tuesday. But other than that, no, Akil Badu has been more like Akil Badu.
Yeah, or
Um,
bad ooh.
yeah, bad ooh. So I like getting Carpenter back in this lineup for just protection because like you can be as good as you are and likely will be as Riley Greene's going to be. But I think this only helps his fantasy outset. Also think it does wonders for someone like Colt Keith and Malloy if Malloy leads off
Yeah.
and pieces like that too because Carpenter's been amazing this year when healthy. It's been a small sample, but again, line of protection matters. You saw it. I mean, to a totally different scale, but Juan Soto was intentionally walked. And guess what, Matt? After that intentional walk, Aaron Judge hit his 300th career home run. That's a
Yeah, that
topic for a
makes
different day.
that made that made less
But
sense than pinch hitting for Jackson Holiday with the bases loaded.
yeah, but like that just is like, and
Right.
obviously a different scale of line of protection when you have
Yeah,
two of
Gary
the best.
Carpenter and Riley Greene have a long way to go before they're
Correct.
Judge
But but
Soto.
the point is like
Yes,
the point is just like what a good hitter can do for you when he's hitting in front of you. So
right.
I love to see Riley Greene getting back, and I love to see Kerry Carpenter back too because rest of the season, I think both those guys. I mean, Riley Greene's obviously added everywhere. Kerry Carpenter's a must add.
Yes.
Moving forward, like that is a guy you are actively looking for on your waiver wire today, considering how good he is and has been this year.
Yeah, we were talking before we started recording. Baseball Reference has the 162 game pace, basically what they would average if they played 162 games throughout their career. And obviously, it's early in Kerry Carpenter's, but 277 is what he's hitting with 30 homers, 26 doubles, 5 steals, 87 RBI, and 78 runs. Like you would take that. That's a 75, 90, 30 guy. Yeah, you would take that. My only question for Detroit is where they slot Riley Greene in. I'm guessing that Zach McKinstry goes back to the bench
Yeah, that would be my
to
guess
fit
too.
because he's like Matt Beerling's been pretty good. Kerry Carpenter, obviously, you're not taking out of the lineup. Parker Meadows has been good enough to hold the spot in center field. You could shift
Malloy.
some. Yeah, Malloy's probably a bench like the fourth guy now
So
in
like
the outfield.
the Wednesday lineup, right?
Yeah,
They're start Malloy's leading off, Carpenter's DHing, Meadows is hitting sixth in center, and Badu is your last outfielder. So like Badu is gone in that
Badoo's gone.
scenario. And then if they're gonna just DH Carpenter, I mean, it doesn't really you don't really need much of a shift because
Well, right. My only question was, would they, for the first couple of games, keep Riley Greene more in a DH spot,
DH him, yeah, and play
considering the fact
Carpenter in
he's
the
coming
outfield.
back from a hammy?
They could, yeah.
Just
I
give
guess
him like that.
it depends on his rehab, right? If he's playing
Right.
the outfield in the rehab and nothing comes from that, then I think he just probably
Yeah.
plugs right into the outfield.
So we'll see, but it is good news for Detroit to get him back. That's a pretty big bat, all star guy. But now we're gonna shift a little bit to we're not gonna play a level of concern here, but just a general thought process on when we go into drafting next year. How concerned are we about drafting Dodger pitchers going forward? Like the level of injuries that are coming out of the Dodgers pitching at this point have to be self-induced. Like, yes, Clayton Kershaw, I'm not really including Clayton Kershaw on this because he's got a ton of mileage. We know he has like
Yes.
a degenerative back
Yep.
thing that's led to some other stuff because he tries to shift the way he's delivering. Not including Clayton Kershaw on this. But Walker Bueller's been injured every other year he's been with the Dodgers, and it got so bad he was training outside of the Dodgers ecosystem to come back, right? Now you have River Ryan is going down for Tommy John. You had Yamamoto's been out with a shoulder thing. Like May and Gonsolin and like literally every pitcher that's pitched for the Dodgers.
Glass now had missed a month.
Right. The only one who stayed healthy and now is injured is James Paxton, which is why it was a little interesting. But like going forward, and I read a Twitter thread the other day about how the Dodgers, the way they teach their pitchers to use their pitches, people are starting to believe is leading to these injuries because there are a lot of high
Interesting.
spin, um, a lot more leaning on breaking pitches and whatnot than fastballs. and even the fastballs are high spin, which we all know puts a lot of pressure on the shoulders and the elbows and whatnot. So, are you? I don't want to say we're completely avoiding the Dodgers pitching, but like, how concerned are you going into next year about drafting Dodgers starters?
I mean, there's also like the Dave Roberts factor that's been there too. Like he is always someone that's limited pitchers more than anyone else.
Yeah,
Like when
took guys out
you
of the middle of no
look
hitters
at like
to
yeah, I
get
mean
in.
pitch counts. Yeah, he has always been weird with his usage to begin with. I mean, look, it's obviously going to depend on a lot of things like ADP, health going into drafts, like normal factors. You also need to see who's the staff actually going to be. Like Flaherty's, they was a rental. Are they going to
Right.
re-sign him? Glass now is under contract for a bunch of years. Yamamoto, obviously, a bajillion years.
Theoretically,
Um,
they get Otani into the pitching mix next year.
yeah, Otani. You're right. Otani's like gearing up to throw in September
Are
or
you
whatever.
deathly afraid of him now pitching for the Dodgers because they can't
No,
keep any of their
not.
pitchers healthy?
Yeah, I mean, like I wouldn't say deathly afraid because obviously we've seen the standalone value Shohei has as a hitter, right? So if he is like, up, can't do this, he's like, I'm just gonna hit. It's like, okay, well, you're still the second best hitter in the world, so like that's fine with me. Um, so like I get what you're saying, but clearly no injury is bad enough to his arm that's gonna limit him from hitting 40 and stealing. He's gonna be a 40-40 guy, so um like it's obviously concerning. I would say more so for just like what we've seen from them this year. Walker Bueller's been terrible. Walker Bueller has been awful. In
Yeah, he's been
every
awful for
facet.
2.5 years.
Gavin Stone doesn't miss bats
No.
and has clearly worn down as the year has progressed. Um, Glass now was I thought overdrafted to begin the year because he's oft injured. It's funny that he has actually probably been like the healthiest of like the group. He did miss the month, but he still made 20 something starts. He's probably still going to get close to 30 starts this year. Yamamoto, I mean, a shoulder going into next year. That's so I mean, it's yeah, I mean, you have to look at the situation and say, well, what happened to all these elite prospects, all this arm talent that the Dodgers had? Where has it all gone wrong? So yeah, there plus the Dave Roberts thing that I led with, it's concerning, but you know, I'm not, if Tyler Glass now dips in ADP, that's something that I take a stab at. If all things, there's still like the all the prospects that they have, and we'll see how Bobby Miller bounce backs. We'll see where Gavin Stone's being drafted next year, like
We're
all that
talking about a
stuff.
guy who's looked bad. Bobby Miller
Yeah, he's looked terrible too.
is not looked
So
good.
so like yeah, there's obvious concern, but like if they re-sign Flaherty, where's his ADP gonna be? Like that's obviously he's been great this year.
Yeah, with a bevy of injury concerns
Yeah. So
coming into
I
it.
mean
So
it's probably a situation you think about like more than others because you don't typically like go into a year being like, wow, the Atlanta Braves have an off injured pitching staff. Like that's not do I stay away? Like it's not, but like there's obvious concern with the Dodgers as a whole.
yeah, I put them up there with the Rays at this point as like you have to be pretty caught. Like if you're gonna draft them, that's fine, but probably reduce projections by about 3 quarters.
Yep.
And then you have to base. I know we don't talk about handcuffing in baseball because that's not usually a thing, but if you're gonna draft guys from like the Dodgers or the Rays rotation, you almost have to have a handcuff later of a guy you
Yep.
feel solid with for like let's say 7, 8 starts to fill in for guys that are almost I don't want to say assured to get injured, but have a higher likelihood based on a preponderance of evidence that they're going
Yep.
to get injured
Yep.
more likely than with other teams. So it's just every day we open it and we see, hey, this guy's going under the knife for the Dodgers, and this guy they have
Yeah.
a 17-year-old prospect who just had like Tommy John too. Like It's just it's just ridiculous. But speaking of prospects, none of these guys I don't think are from the Dodgers. One of them is from Tampa Bay though. James, how excited were you to see Junior Caminero finally come up
Oh, I
to
mean,
Tampa Bay?
oh, this is if there's a must-add prospect for the rest of season, this is your guy. This is
Yep.
number one with a bullet. This is your number one. I must have this guy in my fantasy roster for the final month and a half of the year because there is just simply not another prospect that you are going to see called up that has the tools that Junior Caminero has. Like there is not the power that anyone's going to call up, be like, that guy I'd rather have because he's going to. No. Position eligibility is great. Shortstop third, so you can play him wherever. He has infinite amounts of power. I mean,
He
it's
has the
just
Infinity Stones. Is that what you're saying?
he does. He literally has infinity stones. This is dude, he is a I don't want to like call a can't miss prospect because we've seen this before, but like he has all the tools you need for a fantasy championship run. So, um, if he is on your waiver wire, do not walk, sprint. Do your best Usain Bolt impersonation and sprint to your waiver wire to pick this man up.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. He's been in my top 5 prospects for basically a year and a half now.
Where was he
Um,
when he was called up?
where is he now? Let me see.
Yeah, I mean, he has to be like one or two based on like all the call ups this year, right? I mean, or if it's not one or two, I
He
mean, it
is second.
second. I mean, that's yeah. I mean, that's the type
He's
of
in my
player
latest top 400, he is second.
you
Uh,
have
James
to pick this guy up.
James Wood is 1,
Okay, well, that's been
Camaro's 2, Jackson Holiday 3, Kobe Mayo 4, Dylan Cruz 5.
so we've seen three of those players,
We've
you
seen all
excluding
of them
Kobe.
except for Dylan Cruz.
Well, I was gonna say like Holiday's recall has been amazing.
Yes. Kobe Mayo
Um,
hasn't really done anything because he's
Kobe
mostly
Mayo
been on the
had
bench.
yeah, that was gonna say the one player that I'd say has not been
Yeah,
good.
they're giving him the Heston Kjerstad treatment where he's kind
Well,
of up but
they're
not
just
playing.
too. Well, they're just. It's that's. I think that's the unfortunate part for Baltimore, right? Like
They have too
where
many bats.
if you are not, dude. Well, they're also the best. They're competing for a division, so it's like
Right,
also if you do not hit right away, Jackson Holiday, good luck in AAA. Kobe Mayo probably on his way there
correct,
if you don't continue to hit. So like if Kobe Mayo doesn't hit right away, he's gone. Junior Caminero is coming into a spot where they traded
correct.
everybody. Everybody, all of them. They
Yep,
except Yandy Diaz. That's someone who they probably should have
and
traded that they didn't.
Ben Revort.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, and like so now you have Caminero playing whatever position you need him to play, and he's going to play every day. And they hit him right away. They're like, "You sir, you're gonna hit fifth in this lineup."
Yep.
And is it gonna be surprising if they move him up when he not if when he starts raking? It's just like he's
No,
obviously gone and
I could see him flipping with Josh Lowe
yeah, yeah.
pretty
I dude,
easily. If
he's
not
going.
Morel, if not Brandon Lau.
I would say he is hitting in the top third of the lineup in in a
Yeah.
very short time. Because like and this is redraft only because like he's obviously been long
If
gone.
you're in a keeper league or a dynasty league and he is somehow still available, you need yourself a new one of those leagues
Yeah, you do.
because
Well, no, because then you just farm
well,
championships.
pick them up first and then
Yeah.
be on the lookout for a new league for better
um,
more competitive.
but like you just, it's just there has not been a prospect this year. I mean, I shouldn't say that. Obviously, Jackson Holiday's been exciting, but like situationally,
You mean the 3 Jacksons haven't been enough for you?
yeah, that's fair. Like
Jackson Merrill,
situationally,
Jackson Holiday, Jackson Churio?
you're right. Correct. I misspoke. But like at this period of time, situationally, there's just not a better scenario for a player to get called up and just get to play every day, and that's what Kim Minero's going to get.
Yeah, I would agree. Um, The only thing I didn't see that much of in the minors that I would have liked to see more of is stealing bases.
Yeah.
But he'll get, I mean, he has the speed to get you double digit steals with 30, 35 home run power while hitting 280. So, you know, it's not you're not talking about a 20 stolen base guy. And Caminero is about the only trait that I'm not the biggest fan of. But power, it's really hard to find somebody with more raw power than Junior
Yeah, when
Caminero.
he hits 40 home runs next year, in 2 years, we'll be okay with him not stealing bases.
Exactly. Like Judge doesn't steal that many, but he hits really well and he
we'll
steals
be we'll
and
be okay. Yeah, we'll be
jacks a
okay with
bunch
him.
of homers, so it's you don't need him. Same with Soto, right?
Yep,
Doesn't steal a
we'll
ton
be
of bags, but when you're walking every other at bat, sorry, plate appearance, uh, and jacking homers doesn't really matter, right? So Caminero's up. We saw James Wood come up a little bit ago. We saw his mom get into Twitter beefs with bands, teaching them how to properly use stats, which was fantastic. Some fan tried. I don't know if you saw this, James, but some fan tried to call James Wood out for his 30 plus K strikeout rate,
huh.
and his mom responded and said, "You're wrong because you're using at bats. You're using Ks divided by at bats, and it's Ks divided by plate appearance. So before you call
Let's
somebody
go.
out, learn to use math." And I was like,
Let's go.
"Yes, we got a mom
Guy
who
has
understands analytics."
guy has a 900 OPS, by the way.
Yeah,
So
he's not.
doing pretty
I'm
good.
not concerned about strikeout rate with James Wood.
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty
Also,
good.
when you're 6'7", you happen to have a larger strike zone than most.
Yep.
Ask Aaron
Yep.
Judge,
Yep.
and Giancarlo Stanton. Um, it can nip you. But another prospect that got a lot of talk this week, Zebby Matthews came up for the Twins as a pretty fast rising prospect. To be honest, he's been very quick to rise since being drafted in 2022, and for good reason because he's striking out everybody in the minors. It it was just not fair what he was doing to minor league hitters, so it makes sense that the Twins called him up. They also need pitching help at this point. So I do suspect that Zebby Matthews is going to hang around for.
The
I don't
long
know if
haul?
it's. I don't know if it's quite the rest of the year, but it's going to be another several starts for him for sure. Because I'm not sure he really has that much to prove left in the minors. Yes, the ratios, the ERA, the FIP at AAA, not great, but you can't. That's not what you're looking at for these minor league pitchers. We're looking at strikeouts. We're looking at walk rates. We're looking at does he keep the ball in the yard? Because you also got to keep in mind that a lot of these minor league rosters are made up of dudes who are never going to make the majors. Not everybody playing in the minors is making the majors and going to be an impact. So defense is a major question down there, which leads to spikes in ERA and whatnot. But in the minors, this guy struck out everybody, like everybody,
I
and
think
didn't walk almost anybody. So that's a good start.
I think his major league I think there's dependence on what's going on around him because obviously like I don't think anyone thinks Paddock pitches again. As soon as you start talking forearm, like that's probably it, right? Like
Also, his
Paddock's
two pitch mix has been a problem for a while.
yeah. And so you have that. Joe Ryan, I think, is the X factor here because Joe Ryan hit the IL with the triceps, but the second opinion apparently has gone well. So
Yeah,
when Joe Ryan returns, there's obviously an odd man out because they're running kind of a six-man rotation right now with Festa and Varland as well because Varland just picked up a start. So
yeah.
I think there's a couple factors. Like if Joe Ryan comes back, there's somebody gone, and I would assume
I would
because
assume it'd be
Festa's
Varland.
I assume it's Varland, but that still puts them at six with Festa being up and with Matthews. So I think it's a case of Ryan comes back because your rotation is now if Joe Ryan's healthy, you have
Right.
Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, Bailey Ober for sure. That's your top three.
And then
You
you've
have
got
Woods Richardson.
yeah.
You have Woods Richardson, Festa, and Matthews. So that's a lot of names. Um, my assumption is that we would get the better of Matthews and Festa. So we need David Festa obviously needs to pitch well to stay up, but he got the first crack at it. So my assumption is another guy who's missing a ton of bats and has missed a ton of bats. If he continues to do that, he'll stay up, and Matthews probably gets sent down or just is used as a long reliever. I don't love his rest of season value if we get good news that Joe Ryan's going to return.
Yeah, I also wonder if they could just stick with the six-man rotation because at this point you're trying to save the innings on Joe Ryan, right? Pablo Lopez, if you can save innings and get this guy out of the year on a better note than most of it has gone for him, then great. Um, and then you've got the rest of it is filled by younger guys, and Zebby Matthews and Simeon Woods Richardson and David Festa, who I think down the stretch could benefit from not working every fifth day. I
Sure.
mean, I know that they're still in the wild card hunt.
They're still in the
Um,
division. There's kind of still in the division hunt.
yeah, they are. They're the Guardians are starting to pull away a little bit. They're like
Yeah.
4.5 games up on them. So I don't know. I also wonder if you go with a six-man rotation, if it gives your bullpen um, better chance of hanging in there too. But with that, I don't know if we see any more impact prospects coming up. I would like to think that Dylan Cruz is making his way up after he's obliterated baseballs at AAA like every day this week. I don't know that we'll see that for Nationals, but he may. Um, that's really the only other big name. I guess I went Casey for the Cubs, but I don't know exactly where he fully fits there. So, real quick, Grande, you want to talk about your waivers and streamer pick?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to go Jake McCarthy here as my waiver wire pickup. He is really not owned on ESPN. He's like under 20% rostered. Over the last month, Matt, 21 game span, 403 average,
Yeah.
1100 OPS. The power has been interesting because he's hit a couple home runs. He's hit a couple home runs in the last week, three of them.
Mm-hmm.
Bunch of RBIs over that span, and obviously we know about the speed with McCarthy,
He
which I
came in
think
for a pinch hit,
was the
game-winning double the other day too.
yep. Yeah, I think Jake McCarthy is a must-add rest of season, just given his prospects, and I like for my streamer um or my other waiver wire, I'm gonna go with Ryan Walker, who's now the closer for San Francisco.
There you
So
go. Also, one note on
I
Jake
like that.
McCarthy: they optioned Alec Thomas to AAA Reno
Yeah. I mean,
yesterday.
he's mashing lefties. Like he's mashing lefties, he's mashing righties. Like he is playing every day, and he's gonna hit near the top of the lineup as long as if Cattell misses any
Yeah,
extension of time. Even maybe when Cattell comes back, they might hit him near the top of the lineup.
yeah. I mean, Jake McCarthy gives you elite defensive speed in the outfield too, just like Alec Thomas did, except Jake McCarthy's got a better bat. So,
Yep.
and then your streamer for this week.
Um, I don't love the streaming options this week. I'm gonna go with Hayden Birdsong if he's available. Oakland has been better, obviously offensively, but they're in Oakland on Saturday. Birdsong has flashed a lot of appeal in the strikeout department at times, and Oakland has been significantly better against left-handed pitching, but they're striking out a bunch against righty. So I'm gonna go Birdsong in Oakland on Saturday.
Very nice. And for my waiver, Victor Robles is only rostered in 37% of Fantrax leagues. He's been on fire since joining the Mariners. He's hitting 280, 346, 415. with 3 homers, 12 steals, 16 runs in the 44 game stretch with them. He's done so well that he got himself a 2-year extension from them the other day. And he's leading off in what should be a pretty good lineup coming down the stretch. I know that they've
Yep.
had their strikeout woes, um, but they still have really, really good bats behind him. He seems like he's genuinely happy. I am happy for him as a former Nat to see him starting to get back to the 2019 form that everybody uh, really quite liked. And then my streamer this week, just talked about him, Simeon Woods Richardson, gets a start against Texas on Friday. Texas has been floundering a little bit since the
They
All Star
have.
break. They rank second to last in BABIP versus righties in that span. They're seventh to last in the league in average and uh, weighted runs created plus. They're a little better at home, but they're still not great. They don't strike out a ton, but they also don't do damage with the bat. So there's that. And Woods Richardson's coming off a 7 inning appearance in which he struck out 7, walked none, gave up 2 solo homers. So I think that's a pretty good spot for him to go prove that he wants to hold the spot in the Twins' ever-changing rotation at this point. So that'll do it for this week's Caught Stealing Pod. Thanks to James Grande for aptly filling in for Colby Conway. Gave you streamers, waivers, some prospects that you should probably be adding, and talked a pretty decent amount about injuries and who we're concerned with and not. So next week, we'll bring a whole new adventure to this pod. We'll see who gets injured, who's making moves, what prospects are coming, and then get you set for streamers and waivers down the stretch because it's almost football time, but there's still room for baseball. So we'll catch you this time next week on Caught Stealing.